Welcome everyone, I'm Mark and I've got here John Loudon, and welcome to Business Belters. And today we're going to talk about a continuation of a long-term business strategy series, and we're looking at how you scale your company. We will be looking in kind of detail of getting investors in and different ways of scaling the company, trying to get different seats in the team and building a leadership team. And what your business structure should be. I think it's going to be a very exciting topic, and without further ado, we'll get started on it. So John, what do you think about kind of scaling a company, or like, I think more so like, what's been your experience of like, you know, seeing some company scale, you know, either out of your own kind of client base or, you know, from stories like out in the wider network?
Yeah, to get that. Stories. So I think that business scale, I suppose the first thing is like, should every business scale? Is it important? When we look at business scaling, I think a lot of people are sort of like convinced that this idea of lifestyle business, and we've spoke about that a wee bit in the sense of, you know, do I really need to scale? I'm quite happy and I can build myself a comfortable wage. And we kind of touched on why that might be seen as a negative. That if you're like trying to protect yourself, I always look at it as scale as your protection. The bigger your company is, not in the sense of taking on things like debt, but if your company is healthy and it has a decent amount of scale, then there's so many layers between you and certain death that it's a really good setup. So I think that businesses are protected by scale. So first and foremost, I think it's important that, you know, not everybody agrees to that, but that's certainly my thought process, is getting your company to a certain sort of size where you've got maybe one or two people that do every job. This idea of N+1, you've kind of got that set up. So when I looked at the market, I looked at what I would class as success. And when I see the kind of business owners out there, I'll maybe look at a company and think, right, that's great, because I can see that business is an autopilot. They obviously add considerable value, being that they're the most driven person within the company. By that I mean the business owner, the entrepreneur that's at the helm. But I can also see that the company would largely survive. So there's many business owners that can take 2-3 weeks off and it doesn't affect their bottom line, it doesn't affect their business all that much. Flip to the other side of that, you've got businesses where if the owner even took like an afternoon out, the business would be in absolute turmoil, staff would be really stressed out. So I think that scale gives you that kind of like peace of mind as you kind of build your company up. I've seen a good few over the years where I've been quite impressed by it. There's an ascent of a couple of agencies here in Glasgow, and I think within a very short space of time they put on a bit of scale. And I think that's kind of what I want to get into today with the episode, is what are some of the methods that we can get scale from, and how can we kind of like shorten that journey. So let's say we agree the principle that scale is our protection. How do we actually get there though? What's your views of scale though? Like, what have you seen out there in the market?
Yeah, it's funny, with kind of just, you know, recently I was reading a story about the guy at Gymshark, Ben Francis, and how he kind of scaled his company. He's quite like, I think he's like 28, 29 now, and, you know, £1 billion business. And just hearing his story, it's very, very similar to, you know, a lot of small businesses and medium businesses as well. And obviously I think with a lot of businesses that are from start-up right through, is they always have, you know, I'm the only one that can do the job, and I'm the only one that can manage the business. And when they realise actually you can get a finance team, you know, really actually like see the value of having like a finance team, an operations team, a marketing team to actually help you scale. I think for me, it was a kind of, you know, in a similar sort of way, like from being a startup agency. You know, I think I told you this story before. It was 3 years before I hired a member of staff. I really was like, no, I'll just keep it all in one. And it was very much a lifestyle business. You know, it was making good profit. But I then started to struggle a little bit and start feeling like I'm missing a couple of things, because you're bringing on more clients, but you just can't do it all on your own.
No, you can't scale that way.
And when you actually think about scaling, then you go, I now need to look at the business structure. So there's different things that I started to look at, is like business structure in its whole. So what is the hierarchy of your team? So do you work in a pod structure? So meaning like a pod structure so that, you know, I'm working on something, and we're almost working on like sprints. So we've got a project, we're going through this kind of sprints. We've got the design sprint, and then goes on to like the editing, and then it goes into like the implementation. Or do you have a kind of hierarchical, business where I'm the managing director, then you've got somebody that's in charge of, a department, and somebody else that's in charge of the department. So I had to think about these different things as well within business, like, because these are the foundations that you put in at the very start to when you scale a company. And if you don't get the foundations right, it's hard to kind of change about. I mean, you can, I think, well, being a small company, take that back, being a small company, you can change quite quickly. But what if you're kind of adverse to change and you set that in stone? You can go down the line and it can harm your scale by not getting the business structure right. And then I have also seen, businesses scale really, really quickly. So one of my friends works for another business here based in Glasgow, and they've really brought on investors. So they've got a really good software product. Don't get me wrong, it's a fantastic software product, but they went out to investors to get funding and get money from them, and that's helped them, hire staff and do it quickly. Hire staff, get a really, really good office, but by doing that and getting all the manpower, then they've been able to go. And I mean, they're talking about, like £500 million or something like that the guy's going to walk away with in 2023.
Was that VC or private investors that they were?
Private investors, there's, can't really see who it is. But it's like, but he just went, he was basically no money in his pocket. He was just going down to London, just meetings. But you're right, private, you've got VCs, you've got angel investors, you've got different investors, and that's the thing, like, as somebody scaling a company, how do you find these people? And how, like, what are you going out and do? There is a good resource that I found quite recently. It's called a virtual non-exec director, and you can go into that. And then there's lots of other websites that have got like angel investors and things like that as well, to try and do it. But it's ultimately, I think, if you're getting an investor, you want somebody that's not just there to kind of take a bit of money and walk away. You want somebody that believes in your product or your service as well. So I mean, that's been kind of my experience of it. And I live and breathe business, so like I see businesses scaling, and I love hearing the stories and reading the stories. I think the guy, like, he was a marketing business social chain, the guy Mark Bartlett, he's just one of Dragon's Den. And then I'm looking at, he's like, I think he started his agency at 18, and now what, maybe in his 30s, I don't know.
Yeah, early 30s.
But he got investors, he had investors there, and he had a business partner, and I think he sold his business £300 million or something like that.
I think that's one of the things with scaling a business is the equity, the money that gets invested in is actually the easy part. So like, lots of people have money, but not lots of people are drivers in business. So like, a lot of the time these VCs or private investors or any investment, even like us looking at things like that, you're really looking for a driver, somebody that's like, right, I've got that ambition, that hunger, and you can kind of see that. The only thing that's really holding them back is their access to money. So if they could hire that 6-man team, could they actually progress and get there much faster? A lot of the times the answer is yes. So it's a case of, when you think about it from that kind of lane, I think that entrepreneurs make the mistake of thinking like the person with the finance is the person with the power, and you're like, actually, you're the rare bird, you're the rare commodity. And I think like investors would do that time and time again, because I think if you are an entrepreneur and you take investors' money, and it's really key, and another important part of the episode is, if you take money from an investor, whether it's private or VC, you have to make a success out of that person's investment. It's imperative that you do that, because if you don't make a successful company, you've now got a track record of you are wasteful with money. So people don't want to give money over, in the sense of like, I'll give you X amount of hundreds of thousands of pounds, you go out and hire a team, you're terrible at hiring people, you've got 100% attrition in your staff, there's major issues, you've scaled up a bucket of problems, and I'm thinking, right, that's just good money after bad. Whereas if you're quite good and you're a custodian of money, like you're actually setting aside a good profit, you're on a logical kind of path, like that guy that's building to the 500 million, he will get backed again. And in many cases, he'll be able to go to almost like his choice of finance and say, look, this is what I did with my last company. And they're like, so, but you've got the money to do this yourself. And you're like, yeah, I do have money to do it myself, but this is the way I like to do it. I'm the driver, you're the investor. If you want to do this together, I'm all for the opportunities. But they both throw money at people like that. Whereas if he's even remotely sort of wasteful with money, it's just a case of like, I don't want to invest in it. And I think people don't really clock that they're actually the rare bird in that scenario.
Absolutely. And the thing is, then from the stories that I hear, I've not had experience of it myself, but the investors will try to, shape things and do things in a different way, and they have to kind of stick to their guns of, how to take the advice when the advice is needed. But sometimes they want to try and get things their way. So you're right in saying that. It's
different types of investors as well, because there's like you mentioned that as well. So like the kind of investor you were talking about there is they have like a stake in the business. They maybe drive the business. So like say you have sweat equity rather than financial equity, or the reason why I've took like investment for yourself, say, is because your background in the agency world. So they have value beyond income, and those kind of people are very good at helping businesses grow. But you've also got the type where it's like literally the person's just sitting on a lot of money. They are not particularly interested. It's like, look, you've came to them, it's very transactional. It's almost like a bank loan. Like, look, if you give me this is what I intend to do with your money. But they're on the back seat, and you can't even go to them to ask a question and say, oh, I got kind of stuck with this, and they're kind of like, right, why is that my problem? Like, I just gave you the money, I'm not an active investor. And it's kind of the way I've kind of positioned it on my LinkedIn is like active and passive, because people are sometimes more comfortable with one over another, and people are very strong-willed, and they're like, I don't really want to be told what to do by an investor, I know what I want to do with my business. And that's okay if that's what they're looking for, and I kind of believe in their kind of like passion. I'm okay with that. But then another kind of people, you're thinking they could really just be doing with a shoulder to cry on from time to time, like the ability to pick up a phone and say, Mark, I'm a bit stuck here, this has happened, and you're like, right, look, I've got a vested interest in this business doing well, let's talk about this. And I think it's interesting to see that like VCs, the way I've kind of noticed it is I talk to a lot of people that have had VC investment, and it's quite interesting and curious how VCs go about that, but it's like they've almost worked out, they're not almost about it, they have worked out a systematic way of taking more equity. And it's kind of like, Mark, remember, if you're ever struggling, we're always here, we're always willing to buy more equity, and you're like, I don't want to give up increasing amounts of equity, because then you find yourself on the short end of the stick, where you're a bit like, well, hold on, I'm actually only like 19% in one company now. And it's surprising when you look at companies, especially big companies, and you're thinking they're not even a majority shareholder of their own sort of business. And if you're going to give up a big portion of equity, you see it in things like Shark Tank and Dragon's Den. Look at how concerned they are when that entrepreneur only has like 8%. Because they're like, well, where's your energy and passion going to come from? Because it's not going to come from the big payday. Because you're almost like the salary's the attractive partner. It's like being the CEO of this big company, because it's certainly not the money once you've liquidated your self-down.
It's interesting seeing that Dragon's Den as well, and it's like, I'll take 25%, and they're like, I was only want to give 5%.
I think that. I think it's brutal. It is absolutely brutal the way they do that. But then the end of the day is you're going on a show where one, you're getting exposure to their kind of networks, but they know that they have the power in that. So it's like, is it Tuka or something like that says that, and he's like, I don't get out of bed for any less than 5% or 10% or whatever the number is. And I get it, but at the same time, you've got to kind of be fair as well. Like, I actually think that sometimes they undervalue like what the equity's worth, and they're overvaluing what they can kind of bring to the table, because they know they can amplify the brand. If you think about it, they're not bothered if they invest in one and it kind of doesn't work out for them. A lot of people don't know that as well. After the show, they actually go through the books like in mega detail.
Do they?
So it's like each person that comes in and pitches gets roughly an hour, and then after it, their entire team, like so the Dragons team, will go through all the finances and ferret out all the kind of debts and this and that, and that's when the actual negotiation kind of happens. Because it's like, well, it's not worth what you said it's worth.
Exactly.
There's a debt here that you've kind of had in a way, or you said that was 12 million, and actually it's.
Well, you have this, to. You would have to do it. Just because they say in the TV show, oh, we're going to make this, we project this much. You have to show me.
Exactly.
You have to show me it's going to project this much before I do it. There was a person I don't know if you ever seen that energy drink, No Danger. It was the Glaswegian like energy drink, No Danger, and they went on it and they actually won it. They actually got his money. It's funny because I was looking to do marketing for him, and I was in a meeting and he had like all the books, like how to win Dragon's Den, how to do this,
brilliant,
everything all set up to do it. But
it's kind of like a game though as well. Like, if you're going to go on that show, it'd be kind of naive, and I say it all the time. Why would you go and do a TED talk or go on Dragon's Den and then not study the form? What's the format? Yeah. So you know you're going to need to know your numbers. So you best be like kind of memorising your numbers like every day. Like, this is how much profit and stuff we make. Whereas people still go on and they're like, I don't really know, and and they're like writing it on their hand. They're trying to bring it, and you're like, you can't read it off documents.
Sweating. Yeah. Have you ever had the experience like Kickstarter and like crowdfunding basically? I worked with a company before, and they had software, but they were trying to get funding for another piece of software to get like staffing and things. And it's funny, like the Kickstarter, it's a website, you go in and you basically do a video and say like, this is
here's my idea,
here's the idea. And it was like, so if it was a Kickstarter, I was looking for £30,000 in funding. See if you get like £20,999.99.
Does it go ahead?
You don't get any money that actually be the 30,000.
Although if you're not smart enough to stick in a tenner yourself to get over the edge, then maybe you shouldn't be running it.
Somebody take a penny, and then I suppose so. There's others, but I don't know. I think it's good to get money in a quick way, but then you've got lots of people owning your business. Like, I would rather give equity away to somebody in the business, maybe like yourself, that's going to
either grow it,
either add value for me, or like, if you're going to be a silent investor, that's fine, and like I'll just there to kind of take the money to help invest. But if it's in another way where I can kind of go, listen, I'm having a bit of problem here, or I know that you were a super HR expert or a super software expert.
What would you do with this or that?
What would you do?
Well, I think that really is the value, because I kind of came to it late in life, but I'd realised that you can almost pay anyone to be a coach or a mentor, or court you on an investment, in the sense of like, what could I do to make that person interested in what I'm doing? So there's a few like highly entrepreneurial people here in Scotland where, if you look through their LinkedIn and stuff, they've got like 33 different positions, like board advisor to this, investor in that, and chairman of XYZ, and they run various like entrepreneurial sort of things. They advise governments, and you're thinking, right, that's a really interesting position to be in. However, if you can get in with the right kind of people, they can have a couple of conversations and it can change your life, in the sense of, well, hold on now, we're working with Disney and we're working with XYZ, and you're thinking, this is great to kind of get that. And I think that people should be open to that. I often find that like when people start a business, they're very protective of it. So it's like, my first couple of businesses, I was very much like that. I viewed it like my child, where it's like, look, I don't want somebody else owning a share of my child, and it's like, what will they do, and what if they're a bad parent, and this kind of thing. Like, you start worrying about it. And when you look at it, it's like, a business is just a vehicle to make money, so it kind of doesn't matter. To a certain extent, I get it. Your name's riding on it, you're involved in it, you don't want it to go through anything that's kind of questionable. I understand that. But if you're like super precious about it, it's like, that's why you make the small money. Whereas when you see businesses, I always remember the guy I met, and he was kind of like acquiring nurseries, and he was basically buying them, doing them up for 3 years, and then flipping them. And I thought, that's a game changer. That guy's really worked out. So he had his printing business, that was his bread and butter, that's where he made these wages, and then these were just like houses to him. Like, he just viewed a business like a house, and I thought, that's a brilliant way of doing that. So you get into this idea of like flips, and you're looking at the way he's done it, you're like, that's just really, really clever. But that's the kind of guy that, let's say you did go, right, I'll go 50-50 partnership with you on the next nursery. Like, how much do you need to put in? Oh, it's 50 grand each. Okay, 50 grand each. There's my 50 grand. And you know full well that they're the person that's kind of leading out with the experience. And you almost go into like observation mode, like, what's he doing? How do they negotiate the deal? I would have maybe done that slightly different. I think there was a bit of value here missed, and you'll contribute to it, of course you will. But you'll also learn like how that gets done. And I think it's as easy as that, in the sense of like, right, if you've got the money or the time or the, I'll do a lot of the labour here. It kind of reminds me of that story when Simon Cowell was talking about how he broke into the music industry, and it's like literally he was just in and around the people, and he made himself useful. So if you want to learn about acquisitions or things like that, partner up with people, like hang about these people, you know, how did that deal work, or how did that come about? I get asked that quite a lot now when people see that, like, so how did you first hear about this company, where did that come from, what were you saying to germinate like the whole reason why they reached out to you? Because it's not, you know, not everybody turns around and says, do you want to buy my company? But I think it's like the more you talk about it and the more you're quite vocal, the more it kind of attracts to you. But I think it is key to do that, like look for the outside, like what else could I be doing, and kind of observe, like that's actually quite good, I should do more of that, you know.
I mean, it's just when you're talking there as well, I was thinking about, you know, other ways to do it, you know, so you can get investors, but you can also scale just organically.
100%.
You know, and there's no shame in doing that either.
I think that's probably the more common.
It's the more common way to do it, and I think if you're doing it organically, that's important. Why the business structure comes into play, hiring the right people. I think an important thing as well is trying to almost get a leadership team as well. From what I kind of read and I see a lot, you know, with companies at scale, they get experienced heads in as well, rather than, you know, trying to train.
Do it yourself
and train other people to do it. You want to try and get some people to go, right, they know what they're talking about in that area. Is it the Warren Buffett is basically like, you know, hire people that are better than me.
Smarter than you.
Smarter than you know, and I get that in a certain thing, because on marketing, like I can see myself being really, really good at marketing. See, when it maybe comes to finance or it comes to like HR, I'm not the expert. I didn't go to university. I didn't probably do my 10,000 hours. You know, Malcolm Gladwell's 10. I'm not into that, but somebody is. And somebody knows it, and that's hiring they people as well and getting them and I've seen so many businesses scale because of doing that. You know, even likewise yourself with like Hybrid Anchor, because you had that experience.
It's faster, much faster.
Into Hybrid Anchor, you were just able to go like write this down, and that's because you got the experience in doing it. You know, if you get somebody with experience in your business to do something else, it's like bang, bang, bang. All of a sudden you scale.
It's an interesting observation as well, because I think really what I view us as entrepreneurs is we're amplifiers. So it's like if you add me into a business that's turning over say £8 million, the effect of it might not be the same. Like I might not be able to grow it by 500%, but I'd probably be able to expedite it much faster than maybe like somebody that's kind of, I'm quite happy to sit and be the MD and I'll do like what I need to do to tick the boxes. Whereas if I'm like, right, I want to scale it, I want to grow it, I want to, what else is there? Like, with a company this size, we should be acquiring, we should be doing this, we should be doing that. So I think that something that Grant Cardone said, and some people are like pro Grant or against it doesn't really matter. The important thing is to me is the lessons in it. And he said that it's like people start businesses every other day, and they reckon that like not even 5% of businesses that start will get past 5 years. But when you look at it, there's lots of companies there that have ran for many, many years. And it's like, stop me when this sounds familiar. How many times have you seen a business and you're thinking, I have no idea how that person running that is profitable and successful, because they don't seem like they understand all the kind of rules of the game. Now, take that kind of business and then add somebody that's got like hunger, passion, energy that's going to push it. It would scale the living daylights out of it. And I think that's why I've kind of started to look much more at the investment side of it, because I think that me looking at an old business, I can put a lot more scale on it, faster, leverage it a lot more, because it's actually quite hard to do with a new company. And the whole hypocrisy of how that works is we go for a tender and we're under, now we're just approaching our first year as hybrid, but you need 3 years to kind of do that. Now, the kind of whole hypocrisy of it is I could literally turn around and buy an agency that's 29 years old that has all that revenue in it. And when I buy it, I can take their staff, I can take their assets, I can take their client base, their leverage, their case studies, and it's pretty much classified as if I'd done it all. So if they've got like, you know, we did XYZ for this company, like Unilever, this was one of our clients, we did this, I can talk about that as if that's our work, because it's my asset now, so I'm allowed to do that, even if it's just a shareholding in it. And I think when you acquire those kind of companies, the scale that puts on is unbelievable. But it does make you think then, well, is it not better if you're going to start a company to maybe attach yourself to another entrepreneur and like help them see their journey? So it's like, what's Mark's goals, what's his dreams and aspirations? It's like, I'd love to have a company that's £10 million. Okay, cool. So if I built you a company that was worth £50 million, you'd be really happy. You'd be like, aye, definitely, because it gets you, wait a minute, I'm going to achieve my goal because they're going to come in and supercharge it, and we'll have two people pushing it. And I think that's why a lot of partnerships, they work out really, really well, because you do have those kind of people constantly pushing it. Like, if you think about it, look at your energy in your business, and then imagine if you had like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people like that in a company. Not surprisingly, it puts on a lot of scale like that. But I think that the leverage of it is unreal. Like, you could leverage Mavens way more than I can leverage Hybrid Anchor at this current time. But in a couple of years, it'll kind of even out eventually. But then if I bought something, it's just like that way. So then I look at scaling through acquisition as one of those things where there's an advantage to putting that scale on. And then I can inherit a longer kind of time period for my company going, oh, well, we're 29 years old. And they're like, how does that work? You're only 34. And you go, yeah. So then they think, well, did your father give you the company? You're like, no, we bought it. And there's actually almost like a star, like a cravat for saying, oh, he acquired that agency. You know, there's almost like there's a tick in a box, like that's accepted, like to a higher kind of status than, let's say, oh, I inherited it, like daddy gave me the keys to the agency. And
I've seen that before as well, as like new business owners, and then all of a sudden it's like 100 years of history or something. You're like,
how does that work?
And it is because they've taken over another business, and that did have like 100 years of history. But I'm like, but it wasn't you. What's the you? It's not your generations of companies. But anyway, just to kind of to sell it. And try and scale it. But no, I mean, it's been an interesting podcast in looking into scaling, particularly like looking at like an investment and things like that. And I think, you know, for the listeners as well, I think, you know, if we asked every single one of them what you want to do, they would want to scale their business. Some people do want a lifestyle business, and they're happy, but it's fine. But I think the majority of people go, yeah, I want to scale. I want, even if it's a little bit more, you know, I want more. And I think we're giving them some tips. You know, you can do it organically. You know, get the right team members in. I definitely would say getting people. You know, obviously, like it's a service-based business. It's important to get clients. So the marketing and the sales is vitally important. It's vitally important to do marketing and sales. But that shouldn't really be a thing from you start doing when you're scaling. It should be a thing that you started doing when you started the company. But when you start employing, you know, staff members, that's when I seen my business scale. You know, I think in the first thing, like where I said to you, it was like 3 years, and I was making that, you know, nice turnover. I doubled the turnover when I get one member of staff in, and I was like, oh, and then it just, because it takes you away. You can, as you say, you can
10 more of them.
Wow. And then you go like that, right? But there's a balance though, isn't there? You can employ too many. You can overextend and employ too many people, and then you don't make any money. So you want to hire the right people and the right things, and make sure you have the resources and the capabilities within your organisation to help you scale. And I say, like, get a leadership team. I think again, if you're looking at investors, you're probably wanting to have something that's quite niche, because some, you know, investors are not just going to want to just take a you know, Joe Blogg's marketing agency that's like every single marketing agency out there, because why are you different to it?
What's your USP? What are you investing in?
So you really have to have that unique angle, why you're different from any other marketing agency, so that they will invest in you, and they'll see you kind of going and scaling from there. And means closing up there, what do you think your business belter for today is for this?
So business belter for scaling is, for me, I wouldn't feel ashamed if you want to just scale organically. Don't allow anybody to tell you that it's right or wrong, like what you want to do. Some people are just very comfortable and that's where they want to be, and some of the most successful companies are done that way. However, if you're even partly interested in investment, there's lots of different ways it can be done to kind of like dip your toe in the water without risking your own company. Or to do that, the best way I think in life is to experience things, is just to try and do it on a small scale, take a bit of equity in something, you know, build something to the side, a side hustle, a business, and then get equity or in that one. You don't need to give your main business. And I know in Dragons Den it's fashionable where they say, oh, you got another business behind that, I'll take equity in that as well. But in the real world it doesn't work like that. So if you had a side business, you'd easily take equity in that one. You can sell equity in it, you can get experience doing this and say, well, how does it actually feel on a small scale? And then once you kind of decide if it's for you, you can always then go, I want that as part of my business strategy. But I think like try and minimise your risk, but still get a wee bit of a flavour for, I want to see the impact of what this has done. You mentioned something really key there where you said when you took on an employee, you doubled your turnover. So probably instantaneously after that, you thought, shit, I should have probably done that sooner. But it doesn't matter. The point is you've done it. So it's like you did the right thing. But that's what I'm saying. If you'd never took that leap, you would have never known that. Worst case scenario, you would have done that and thought, that didn't work out for me. But I think it's important to, one, dip your toe in the water, but two, get back on the horse if it didn't quite work out. That doesn't mean it doesn't work. It just might mean that you didn't quite get it right.
Yeah, exactly.
That'd be mine. What about yourself?
I would say my business belter is, for me, is making sure that you probably have to get your foundations right. You have to get your base set up within your business. Also, you are not the expert, and you're the expert in your business, and you're the baby, but you're not the expert at absolutely everything that you can do. So, like, hire people or find investors that's going to help you get there. But it's all about having your long term strategy. What is your goal? And you want to retire before you're 40, before you're 50. Like what you trying to do. Ultimately, that. Like, we're all in this, to enjoy business, to have a nice life, but lots of different people have different goals. So just my business belter would be to make sure you set your goal and then just go and chase it and get your foundations right. That would be me.
It's a brilliant one. So just to wrap up there for this episode, today we've been speaking about scaling your business. There's lots of different ways to do that. It also kind of pertains to investment, and one of the best ways of investing in business is to actually invest in yourself. By subscribing to Business Belters, we talk about topics like this all the time. We also take audience engagement, so questions that you send in, things that you want to learn about. We've already had people listening to episodes and say, I'd love it if you and Mark go a little bit deeper on that, or you kind of touched on something there and it feels like there's a bit of a topic. We want to know about that stuff. So if you're subscribed to the channel, first of all, thank you. But please do engage with us as well. Don't just be a silent watcher that meets us at a wedding and says, I watch your episodes, or reference it back to us. We love to see people engaging with us, and we want you to kind of be along there for that journey. So until next week, it's a goodbye from me.
It's a goodbye from him.
See you guys.